Imagine walking into an interview, answering every question with confidence, building great rapport with the hiring manager, and feeling certain you've just landed the job. Then, right before the interview ends, they ask one simple question. So, do you have any questions for us? You smile politely and reply, No, I think you've covered everything. It sounds harmless, professional even. But for many hiring managers, that's the exact moment your interview starts falling apart because that answer doesn't tell them you're satisfied. It tells them you weren't prepared. It tells them you aren't curious. And worst of all, it tells them you don't care enough about this opportunity to dig any deeper. The truth is, the last 5 minutes of an interview often matter just as much as the first 30. This is where average candidates become forgettable, and where great candidates separate themselves from everyone else. The smartest job seekers don't just answer questions, they ask the right ones. They turn the interview into a conversation instead of an interrogation. They uncover information other candidates never think to ask. And sometimes, they even eliminate the interviewer's biggest doubts before leaving the room. Today, you'll learn exactly which questions hiring managers secretly hope you'll ask, which questions instantly make you sound more professional, and the one bold question that can completely change the outcome of your interview. By the end of this video, you'll never again walk out of an interview wondering if you missed your chance. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, have you ever finished an interview and immediately thought, I should have asked that? I'd love to hear your experience because chances are someone else can learn from it too. Now, let's make sure that never happens again. Number one, the interview question that reveals more than you think. Most people believe an interview ends when the interviewer stops asking questions. It doesn't. In reality, the interview reaches its most important moment when the interviewer looks at you and asks, Do you have any questions for us? Many candidates think this is just a polite way to wrap things up. It's not. Hiring managers ask this because they want to learn something they couldn't discover from your resume or your interview answers. They want to see how you think. What matters to you? Whether you're simply looking for any paycheck or whether you're looking for the right opportunity. Unfortunately, countless candidates make the same mistake. They smile and say, No, I think you've answered everything. Or even worse, I'm good. I don't have any questions. The room may stay quiet. The interviewer may smile politely. But mentally, they've already started making assumptions. They assume you didn't prepare. They assume you haven't researched the company. They assume you're not genuinely interested in the role. And they wonder if you'll bring that same level of passivity once you're hired. Think about it from the employer's perspective. They've just spent 30 or 45 minutes asking thoughtful questions to understand whether you're the right person. When it's finally your turn to ask something, you have nothing. That sends a message even if you never intended it to. The strongest candidates understand that interviews are two-way conversations. Yes, the company is evaluating you, but you're also evaluating the company. After all, accepting the wrong job could impact your career, your finances, your work-life balance, and your future opportunities. Someone who asks thoughtful questions demonstrates confidence. It shows they're thinking long-term instead of simply hoping for an offer. It tells the interviewer, I'm serious about making the right decision. That mindset instantly changes how people see you. Instead of appearing desperate for any job, you appear selective, thoughtful, and professional. Ironically, employers often respect candidates who evaluate them just as carefully as they're being evaluated, because that's exactly how top performers think. They don't chase opportunities blindly. They choose them wisely. So, the next time an interviewer asks, Do you have any questions for us? Remember this. They're not giving you permission to speak. They're giving you one final opportunity to prove you're the kind of person they want on their team. Number two, never walk into an interview with only one question. One of the biggest interview mistakes has nothing to do with your answers. It happens before you even walk into the room. Too many candidates prepare exactly one or two questions, believing that's enough. Then something unexpected happens. The interviewer naturally answers those questions during the conversation. Now the interview is almost over. They ask, So, what questions do you have for us? And suddenly, your list is empty. You panic. You say, I was actually going to ask that. Or, No, you've covered everything. It feels like the safest response, but it's actually one of the weakest. The solution is surprisingly simple. Never prepare just one question. Prepare 8, maybe even 10. You probably won't ask all of them. In fact, you shouldn't. As the interview progresses, cross off the ones that have already been answered. Then choose the questions that still feel relevant. This approach gives you flexibility. More importantly, it allows you to adapt the conversation instead of forcing it. Professional interviewers notice this immediately. They can tell the difference between someone reading from a memorized list and someone who came prepared to have a meaningful discussion. Another advantage is that different interviewers care about different topics. A recruiter may appreciate questions about the hiring process. A future manager may respond better to questions about expectations and team performance. An executive might enjoy discussing the company's direction or long-term vision. The more prepared you are, the easier it becomes to match your questions to the person sitting across from you. Preparation also makes you more relaxed. When you know you have plenty of strong questions ready, you stop worrying about saying the perfect thing. Instead, you listen more carefully. You become more engaged, and your confidence naturally grows. Remember, asking questions isn't about filling silence. It's about gathering information that helps both sides make a smarter decision. Great interviews don't feel like interrogations. They feel like conversations between two professionals exploring whether they're a good fit for each other. So, before your next interview, don't bring one question. Bring several. Some will become unnecessary. Others will become incredibly valuable. And having that flexibility can be the difference between ending an interview with an awkward silence or leaving the hiring manager with the impression that you were one of the most prepared candidates they've met. Before we continue, I'd like to hear from you. How many questions do you usually prepare before an interview? 1, 2, or none at all? Let us know in the comments. Number 3. Ask about the culture, not just the benefits. Many candidates make the mistake of asking questions that only benefit themselves. How many vacation days do I get? Can I work from home? What's the salary review schedule? There's nothing wrong with these questions. But if they're the first things you ask, you may unintentionally signal that you're more interested in what the company can do for you than what you can contribute. The strongest candidates take a different approach. They start by asking about the people, the team, the environment, the company's culture. Why? Because culture determines almost everything about your daily experience. 2 jobs can have the same title, similar pay, and nearly identical responsibilities, yet feel completely different because of the people you work with and the way the company operates. A thoughtful culture question also creates something valuable. It gets the interviewer talking about their own experience. People naturally enjoy sharing stories about themselves. When an interviewer starts describing why they enjoy working there, what makes the team unique, or what they've learned during their time with the company, the conversation becomes more personal. Instead of feeling like another interview, it begins to feel like two professionals getting to know each other. That emotional shift matters. You're no longer just another resume. You're someone who genuinely wants to understand the workplace before making a commitment. Some excellent questions include, what do you personally enjoy most about working here? How would you describe the team's culture in 3 words? What separates the employees who thrive here from those who struggle? What challenges do you think this team will face over the next 6 months? Notice how none of these questions can be answered with a simple yes or no. They encourage stories, examples, honest insights. And while the interviewer is answering, pay attention, not just to their words, but to how they say them. Do they answer with excitement? Do they hesitate? Do they give specific examples or only vague corporate phrases? Sometimes you'll learn more from their tone than from the actual answer. Remember, interviews aren't only about convincing the company to hire you, they're also your chance to avoid joining the wrong company. A job offer isn't automatically a good opportunity. The right culture can accelerate your career. The wrong one can make even your dream job miserable. That's why smart candidates don't leave culture to chance. They ask, they listen, and they use the answers to decide whether they truly belong there. Number 4. Ask questions that reveal the real job, not just the job description. A job description tells you what the company hopes the role will look like, An interview tells you what the role actually looks like. Those two things aren't always the same. That's why smart candidates don't leave the interview assuming they understand the position. They ask questions that uncover the reality behind the title. One of the best questions you can ask is, what would a typical day in this role look like? Simple, direct, but incredibly revealing. The answer often exposes details that never appeared in the job posting. You might discover that half the day is spent in meeting, that priorities constantly change, or that the role involves responsibilities you never expected. Another powerful question is, what would success look like during my first 30, 60, and 90 days? This question instantly changes the conversation. Instead of focusing on getting hired, you're already thinking about delivering results. Hiring managers love that mindset because they're not just looking for someone who can do the work. They're looking for someone who's already planning how to succeed. You can also ask, what's the biggest challenge the person in this role will face? Or, if you could solve one problem by hiring the right person, what would it be? These questions accomplish something important. They help you understand the company's real priorities. Every open position exists because of a problem. Maybe the team is growing quickly. Maybe deadlines are slipping. Maybe customers need better support. Or maybe the previous employee struggled to meet expectations. When you understand the problem, you can position yourself as part of the solution. For example, imagine the hiring manager says, "We need someone who can improve communication between departments." Later in the conversation, you can naturally respond, "In my previous role, I regularly coordinated projects across multiple teams, so improving communication is something I've done successfully before." Now you're no longer giving generic answers. You're addressing the exact challenge the employer cares about most. That's a completely different level of interviewing. You're connecting your experience directly to their needs. And that's exactly what hiring managers remember after the interview ends. The candidates who receive offers aren't always the ones with the strongest resumes. Very often, they're the ones who make it easiest for the employer to imagine them solving real problems from day one. Before moving on, I'd love to hear your opinion. If you were hiring someone today, what would impress you more? Years of experience or someone who clearly understands your biggest challenges? Share your thoughts in the comments. Number 5, the one question that can save or win your interview. Now we've reached the question that almost nobody asks. Not because it's difficult to remember, because it takes confidence. Right before the interview ends, after you've thanked the interviewer for their time, ask this. Based on everything we've discussed today, is there anything that gives you hesitation about my fit for this role? Then stop talking. Let the silence do its job. At first, this question may feel uncomfortable. Most candidates avoid it because they're afraid of hearing criticism. But here's what they don't realize. If the interviewer already has concerns, those concerns don't disappear just because you never ask about them. They simply leave the room with unanswered doubts. And unanswered doubts often lead to rejection. This question gives you something incredibly valuable, a second chance. If the interviewer says, "Your experience is impressive, but we're looking for someone with more leadership experience," you now have the opportunity to respond. You might say, "I completely understand that concern. While I haven't held the title of manager, I have led cross-functional projects, mentored new employees, and coordinated teams across multiple departments. Those experiences taught me many of the same leadership skills this role requires." Now you've addressed the concern directly. Instead of letting the interviewer fill in the gaps with assumptions, you've provided context they may never have considered. Or perhaps they say, "We're concerned because your background is in a different industry." Again, you have a chance to explain how your transferable skills, adaptability, and learning ability make you a strong candidate despite the industry change. That's incredibly powerful. Even if the interviewer says, "No, I don't have any concerns," you've still won. Why? Because you've demonstrated maturity. You've shown that you're open to feedback. You're confident enough to invite honest criticism. And you're focused on improving, not protecting your ego. Those are qualities every manager wants on their team. This question also changes the emotional ending of the interview. Instead of ending with polite small talk, you end with a meaningful, professional conversation. That's the part people remember. Years from now, Interviewers may forget many of your answers, but they often remember candidates who showed courage, curiosity, and genuine professionalism. The goal isn't to sound perfect. The goal is to show that you're someone who listens, learns, and responds under pressure, because that's exactly what you'll be expected to do once you're hired. And sometimes, the question that feels the hardest to ask becomes the reason you receive the job offer. The next time you're sitting in an interview and the hiring manager asks, "Do you have any questions for us?" Remember this: that isn't the end of the interview. It's your final opportunity to influence the decision. Anyone can memorize answers to common interview questions, but very few candidates know how to ask questions that demonstrate confidence, preparation, and genuine interest. When you ask about the company culture, you discover whether you'll actually enjoy working there. When you ask about the role, you learn exactly what's expected and show that you're already thinking like a future employee. And when you ask whether the interviewer has any concerns about your fit, you give yourself the rare chance to address objections before they become rejection. Those few minutes at the end of an interview can leave a stronger impression than everything that came before them. So don't waste them. Use them to build trust. Use them to gather valuable information. And most importantly, use them to show that you're not just looking for a job. You're looking for the right opportunity where you can create real value. The best candidates don't simply wait to be chosen. They actively shape the conversation. And that's exactly what great professionals do throughout their entire careers. If this video helped you think differently about interviews, let me ask you one final question. Which of these questions will you use in your next interview? Or do you have another favorite question that has worked well for you? Share it in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else land their dream job. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who's preparing for an interview. You never know, one smart question could completely change the direction of someone's career. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.